Mr. Chairman, the meeting is yours.
Thank you. Thanks to everyone for joining us. It looks like we may be challenged with getting a quorum today, but we'll start off with a roll call. Stevie? Stevie, you're muted.
Nick Bianchi, Lisa Werder Brown,
She's here.
Kinsey Casey, Darla Cravata, Lloyd Cunningham,
Here.
Dan DeMarco, Patricia DeMarco,
One second.
Why are you in summer clothes?
I'm not. Hold on. Wait. I'm in a meeting.
who was that?
Patty, was that you? I think she's going to be late.
Tina Ducey,
Here.
Ariam Ford Craver, Nick Resock,
I'm here.
Bob Grimm,
Here.
Mark Heckman, Rebecca Kiernan, Ken Lasada, Ruth Ann Omer,
I am present.
Stanley Paps, Will Pickering,
Here.
Mary Ellen Ramage,
Here.
Tim Rogers,
Here?
Mark Semponia,
Here.
Kathy Sapp,
Present.
Danielle Vestreska, Max Young-Unker,
Here.
Stevie, make
I
sure
have
you go
11.
back to Rebecca.
Rebecca Kiernan.
Here.
Okay,
Thank
we
you.
have a forum.
Great. Thank you. Thank you all for joining us on this cold February day. Our first action item is the approval of the minutes of January 2021. Would you be kind enough, if you make a motion, please identify yourself for the record.
Bob Grimm, move to approve the minutes.
Ruth Ann Omer, second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, give your consent by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. None.
Opposed? Ayes have it. First item is for discussion is on our upcoming rate study with Dave Montz, the new executive director of Three Rivers Wet Weather. Dave, welcome, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Tim, and thank you for inviting me to speak at your meeting. I received a call last week from Jeannie and was honored to be able to speak. As you know, I'm the new executive director here at Three Rivers, and only my third week, so kind of still new and getting into it. But as you know, my past history is 32 years in municipal government. I know a little bit about sanitary sewers and the issues that are in the forefront here. One of the matters that Three Rivers has undertaken for several years now is a rate study where we request information from the communities in the ALCOSAN system, obviously, to gather their individual rates that they use to maintain their systems. It's easy to obviously know what the ALCOSAN rate is, and over the course of the years with ALCOSAN projecting out 3 years, I know as a former municipal official that was very helpful from our standpoint. So with the rate study at Three Rivers, which we have, will be sending out to municipalities again now for 2021, gathers information as to what the individual communities charge on either a per gallon or a flat fee. Some charge a little bit of both. That information is then placed into a spreadsheet which is broken down by basin groups. And this allows a municipality to go onto the Three Rivers website, or any individual, and gather the information based on the fact that you can look right at your neighboring communities. And that allows the comparability from one community to the other. The information is not only provided in the spreadsheet form, we also provide it in a graph form. So if you want to look at the graph, you can tell where your community is based on your neighboring communities or other communities throughout the ALCOSAN system. It's a very useful and helpful tool. One of the other great features of it is it's broken down based on the baseline of using 12,000 gallons of water, so that you could do the comparison as from one municipality to the other, so what the total fees would be. And lastly, one of the great parts of it is there's a chart that is created, again, per group for basins, that lists the affordability. So it'll tell you what the affordability rate for that basin group is from based on a municipality. And that is really great because a lot of the information that we are gathered and regulated on is what is the affordability for our customers, our paying customers. So this allows to look at that chart and see where you are at on those guidelines. It's a very basic one. Our biggest goal is that we can get your help on is getting the municipalities to provide us the information. It's a great tool. Used it on myself in the past, and it is a very good tool and a very easy way to determine what your neighboring communities are offering. Tried to make it as short as I can here, and if I have any questions, I'll try to answer them. Like I said, I'm pretty new, but kind of understand what's going on.
Oh, Mr. New Executive Director, I have a question.
I'm sure you do. I'd be disappointed if you didn't, Ruth Ann.
Well, welcome, and it sure is nice to see your face in that seat, Dave. Good for you. I have a quick question. I'm going to be reaching out to Mark and Mayor Ken in my group, my watershed group. We're getting maps, and I think I understand you that, and please correct me if I'm wrong, you're still formulating this and you're looking for data. You're looking for up-to-date data, right?
Yes, we have it up to last year. We're looking at new data for 2021.
Because it would be a great tool as an introduction when we reach out to the municipalities in our source sheds as a discussion item, like besides introducing, and I'll be talking to Mark offline, who we are and how we want to have updates. Oh, by the way, has this been publicized yet, this report? Did it go out to all the municipalities or yet?
We haven't. It's on our website, so you can look at yours. It's under the municipal tools section under actually budgeting. So you can find it. And I will send over to Jeannie the links that we use so that it can be disseminated throughout your group. So if you went onto the site, you can see last year's. What we'll be sending out is information gathering for 2021.
Okay, because like I said, it'll be a great introduction tool because I'm always looking for something to talk about, Dave. So this will be helpful. So we'll see what we can do. We'll use it and see if we can get you any good information.
Thank you.
Ruth Ann, we've never known you to be at a loss for something to talk about.
If it's about SOARs, especially.
I would caution all the everyone on the call that if you were looking at doing a rate increase, and some rate increases are tied to ALCOSAN increases by percentage, but if you're looking to do a rate increase, you have to do an act. I think it's Act 537 study. We, Shaler, are in the process of doing a study right now on our own. We've contracted with RDM to do that study, and it's anticipation of a potential rate increase for next year. And they generally take about a month or two to complete if you have good historical data from a financial standpoint. So are there any other questions for Dave? Hearing none, we'll move on to the regionalization status report. Jan, are you with us?
I am. Hi there. Whoops. Guess I'm kind of short.
Jan, you want to stand up or?
Well, anyway, last month we talked about the Zoom meetings that ALCOSAN held to talk with the customer municipalities about the transfer agreement, some of the modifications that had been made over the over several months with the municipal solicitors. And we had good attendance, over 100 representatives from municipalities attending the meetings. There were some good questions. This was some of the questions that we had. Can you see my screen here?
No, just,
Not yet.
That?
there you go.
Okay, so, you know, there were questions about the scheduled distribution, and my final slide does talk about the agreements that have gone out. We are not anticipating future revisions. There will be no most favored nation concept, although we did talk about how the Pittsburgh Water and Sewer Authority with the PUC, that does modify things a little bit. There were still some questions about documentation requirements that we ask on easements, right-of-ways, and the as-builts. So, you know, we're just asking for the best that the municipality has that would make it easier for ALCOSAN going forward and maintaining the system. There were modifications to the agreements that were discussed. So stream removal, you know, we've all talked about stream removal for decades now and all recognize that their connection to the sewer system is a problem. So there is language in there to talk about working with ALCOSAN to remove those streams from the sewer system. There was some discussion on illegal connections. So, you know, in a sanitary sewer system, that's the connection of stormwater. And we expect that the municipalities will continue to work to remove those connections. That is not an illegal connection in a combined sewer community, and we recognize that. We talked about liabilities. Municipalities will have some retained liabilities for 12 years. We went back and forth with the length of those liabilities, but settled on the 12 years. So we'll be working with all of you over the next 12 years and probably be beyond that. I mean, these are the things that streets run, where we can really find good locations through the flow monitoring to have source reduction that would have an impact on the overflow. So those are the kind of things that, you know, and if there was basement backups existing before the transfer agreement, those liabilities associated with those basement backups will be retained for 12 years. It does include language about upstream development. You know, we do want to service the area and provide sewage service. So, you know, we did try to encourage upstream development. There were questions on tap-in fees and how that's anticipated to work. And, you know, in order to get a tap-in fee, you have to own a portion of the system. So the municipality will own, for new tap-ins, will own 10 feet of the last segment of the sewer system, which will enable the municipality to collect the tap-in fee. And then we talk about the repair documentation. You know, unless you turn the system over to ALCOSAN and agree to a cost for ALCOSAN to make the repairs, those repairs are to be made by the municipality and in advance of the transfer.
Jan, a couple questions. Could you repeat the tap-in fee, the 10-foot ownership? What was that again?
The 10 feet segment of the last segment before the connection to the transferred sewers.
So you're not talking about private laterals, correct?
Yes,
Okay, so the municipality would own the 10-foot section between the trunk main and the private lateral.
correct.
Okay,
Tim, there shouldn't be that they're out there, but there shouldn't be that many
yeah, I agree.
of those. I mean, there are out there, but, and I would hope the municipality would discourage that and try and figure out a different way. I mean, gravity is gravity, but you know, I can see your hesitation, understand why, but there's no other solution, I don't think.
I agree. I don't think there's a lot of them out there. I just wanted to understand that. And then the most favored nation, the reason that I brought that up was, am I to assume that all of the agreements, save possibly PWSA, will be mirrored agreements, same agreements?
Say that again, Tim?
Will all the agreements, with the exception of PWSA, will all the agreements be mirrored agreements or the same agreement?
Yes.
Okay. So my concern is that if there is a negotiation with any transferee to ALCOSAN, that they would get a better deal, then that's going to cause a problem for all of us, I would think.
I think the only thing with PWSA was to recognize that they have PUC requirements.
Okay.
It's nothing more than that. It's still all the same general language for both parties, the city, you know, PWSA and ALCOSAN.
Okay. And then if we could discuss one more time the liabilities. I see you mentioned that one of the things that caught my ear was basement backups. So we would continue to be liable for them for 12 years. And the nature of that is okay, but what if the backup was caused by an action of ALCOSAN? For instance, a failure to repair once you acquire.
And those will be things that we'll work on together.
Okay.
And if I could jump in, Jan, this is Max. I mean, that was a discussion in terms of the modified transfer agreement, Mr. Rogers, because of that concept of your watch and our watch. And that was a concern that was brought up, that, you know, if the basement backup, you know, if it's been experienced now, if there's evidence that it's happening up until the point of transfer, that is going to fall back to the municipality. It's something that we should have corrected or addressed or not let happen in the first place, you know, when it was on their watch. If 6 years from now or something, you know, a backup basement is start to experience, I mean, that is going to fall primarily, you know, to ALCOSAN, because it is our line. You know, it should have been repaired up to the standards, and you know, it's been taken over. And if there is a problem, it's going to be likely a maintenance issue. So because that would happen post transfer, that would be on ALCOSAN. So it wouldn't be a retained liability, you know, with the municipality. But as Jan is talking about, as we're envisioning this ongoing process of communication, of you know, needing to get information from the municipalities as to prior complaints or, you know, other information or what has been done in the past to address these. Is there a valve on it or things like that? That's where we're going to envision. And then something that we can't really document in the transfer agreement, it's going to be those field discussions and that, you know, back and forth in the discussion that is going to take place in the 200 miles of transferred sewers.
Okay. And I think
Essentially, existing conditions, we'll still be responsible for. Anything that happens in the, foreseeable future goes back to ALCOSAN.
I mean, for the most part, but there will be some cases where there's, capacity limitations where, as you all know, when we first started to determine what the clean water plan would look like, if we don't try to go back into the system, then we're just constructing larger sewers. So we do have to try and identify places. I mean, you do reach a point where you're not getting the return on your dollar, but we have a fairly wet system, and we're going through and we're doing the flow monitoring to identify those wet areas. And we plan to work with the municipalities to help reduce some of that flow from getting into the system, whether it's through lining the sewers that lie along creek beds or whether it's green infrastructure. But we'll work together to do that.
Jan, I had two questions. One, just to continue your discussion, we all know when there's sewer problems, they can be a mixture of, excuse the pun, sanitary and storm sewer. And a lot of times anymore, sometimes the storm sewers are causing just as much problems. So ALCOSAN will own the trunk sewer. The municipalities will still own the storm sewers. So I assume that when they have these basement backups or any issues, the municipalities have to recognize that you will be doing studies as to what's causing the problems. And potentially it could be that they're going to have to work on their storm sewers, separate systems, I'm sorry, to solve the problem. I mean, I don't know if anyone's thought about that, I hope people don't think that just because they're signing this over to ALCOSAN, that, that I know there's the 12-year thing, but there's still going to have to be a lot of communication. And it could be a joint project fixing on everything because of the storm and sanitary and the separate systems.
Thank you. I agree.
I have a question about that. I don't know if my hand is up or not, but I don't understand why, if we have made all the repairs to this system that we are turning over, and we turn it over to ALCOSAN, why do we retain a liability for so long? I don't understand that at all. It seems to me like it's an inordinate burden when we've already invested a lot of money in order to turn it over in fully repaired and functional state. I still have some concerns. I had some questions raised from my counsel about that in the first place. So I would appreciate.
There are a few reasons for that, and that is that you make the repairs, but you also retain the easements and right-of-ways. So in order for ALCOSAN to get in and make improvements, we need, and a lot of times the municipality does not have those records.
Right.
So that is maintained with you for having that system in place for so long. So, just for us to get in there and make the repair. The other thing, the repairs were mostly structural in nature and not I&I reduction. And we all have source reduction that needs to continue. And in order to move the clean water plan forward, we have to work together to do that. So, that is another reason. And then again, illegal connections, they a lot of times exist further up in the system, and or something that surcharge when there's heavy rainfall, you surcharge the system, and that's when those basement backups occur. And sometimes it can be pretty damaging to property. So that is why the illegal connections are a problem, in the sanitary sewer communities.
Thank you.
And I just
Jan,
have one.
if I can.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, Mary Ellen. I was just going to jump off of that and just repeat something that we said, at our 6 meetings over 2 years ago, and just our other meetings on the modified transfer agreement back in the end of January or so, is just the reminder again that this is an optional program, that we have structured it in the best way that we can for both ALCOSAN and for the municipalities. And at the end of the day, it's going to be a decision, by municipalities, if they do want to turn over, these lines, these are the terms in which they're going to be transferred over, because ALCOSAN will be taking on these additional responsibilities and burdens, and things that occurred aside from an engineering perspective or something that wasn't caught in the defect reports and it's not part of the repairs that Jan was mentioning, are going to be looked back at to the municipality on something that should have been done differently or fixed when it was on your watch. So I think that's just one thing to keep in mind. And we'll repeat again that we think, although this is a very complex document, there are a number of exhibits and numbers of attachments. The overall concept and the thrust of this is to regionalize these sewers, allow ALCOSAN that our only job is sanitary sewers, unlike municipalities that have to worry about the police, the firefighters, the roads, everything else along those lines. And that is the whole background to these transfer agreements. And there will be some retained liabilities that will stick with the municipalities as part of that agreement.
I was just gonna say, when you were talking about the illegal connections, I was the one that brought up the terminology used, in the agreement about illegal connections for the combined source. So, is that going to be clarified a little better, or?
I don't think so, but I mean,
No.
just know that we know that there are stormwater connections in combined sewer systems.
Well,
And-
yeah,
and-
and so we're clear, it was actually illegal by the Allegheny County Plumbing Code for a combined sewer community to disconnect a downspout until 2012. So that was my concerns about using the term illegal for the storm sewer in a combined system, because storm connection.
Right, I agree with you 100%. I don't really even think that sewer separation in combined systems is the best solution for solving the pollution problem. So, we recognize that they would stay the same way. That's why the clean water plan includes tunnels. Otherwise you would just be tearing up streets and separating sewers, everywhere you could, even on private property. So we do recognize that.
Yeah, and this is Max again. If I could jump in, when that question did come up, as we were doing the presentations, we did have the chance to go back and look at the definition of illegal connections, and our recollection on the fly there was correct. It did refer to the situation where a regulatory agency, either the county or the state level, has approved or has not approved your system. So I would just encourage everybody to look at those definitions and go through them and see that they do address that particular situation as written currently.
Jan, the second part of my question, I actually had two, was that, and you sort of alluded to it about the PUC. Everybody knows at this point that we have private utility companies coming in and going to municipalities, excuse me, to purchase their systems. And there's many people on this call that worked a lot of years with hoping, as Max had said, to regionalize the source as much as possible. So what was just said was this is a voluntary program. I don't know, it's public knowledge that at least one municipality is doing it, and I would assume that they're not going to transfer over their section to ALCOSAN. I don't know how that's going to affect the whole thing. I guess it almost doesn't matter. Like as Max said, it's voluntary. So I guess if a community sells their system to a utility, then they can keep it, right? I mean, it's just a shame because it's kind of like we kind of wanted to do a whole regionalization. Maybe it's not a shame. I don't know. Have you had any conversations with those utility companies, and do they understand, or how is that going?
Just initial contact, just saying that we should probably talk at some point.
Right. And this is Max again. We are aware of the proposal that was approved in December. in Brentwood. Yeah, we have a number of issues, not just regionalization there, but we've got GROW grants that are outstanding. We've just got the Z agreements in general, and how does a private entity or some other operator come in and still have the same obligations that the municipality had. So we have sort of created a task force internally at ALCOSAN to consider sort of that issue, because as Ruth Ann, as you mentioned, Act 12 from a couple years ago sort of changed, I guess, the market and has led to this increase of appetite for sanitary systems, but how that fits, in all these other moving parts just for the ALCOSAN system, which is unique in Pennsylvania, is a question we are still analyzing and reviewing, and have not made any types of final decisions yet because it's just too soon.
So just like PWSA, if anyone does that, the PUC is involved. So I would assume that adds another whole layer of timing and approval. So I just was curious because it is coming. I can't tell. I can tell you that not just the one. There's many communities are being approached to look at that. So we're just starting those discussions, I would assume. So thank you.
Sure.
And that was a good point. This is Kathy Sapp. That was a very good point you brought up.
Okay, so I had mentioned the repairs that are in the repair, the defect reports. And, so 11 of the 80 points of connections have completed their repairs. And 53 of the 80 points of connection are in some phase of planning or construction. They're either developing the contract documents or they're implementing the contracts. And then there are another 16 of those 80 that we don't really have enough information on to determine if they have the moving forward to get repaired. So last week we sent out 10 of the modified transfer agreements, and this is the point of connections. C45, that's Collier and Carnegie. C5411, that's Collier and South Fayette. T10, Monroeville and Turtle Creek. T29A is Monroeville. A75 is Aspinwall. A78, Aspinwall and O'Hara. M45, Homestead and Munhall. M49, West Mifflin, Munhall, Whitaker. 016 Ben Avon and 016Z Ben Avon. And these are all municipalities that have expressed desire to move forward quickly. And we do have their defect. We have the information that they submitted. The repairs were made and the documentation was performed in a way that we can put it into the asset management software. And there are another 4 that are planned to go out this week. So that's pretty much where we're at with the distribution of the modified transfer agreements.
Question.
Yes.
Nick Griesok. So you mentioned for Monroeville, there's T10.
Yes.
And the other one was it T29A?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have the description of which ones those are?
T29A is, you know what, I'm not sure. Tim, you're on the line. Are you familiar with what connections these might be?
Yeah, Jan. T10 is a point of connection that is in Turtle Creek, but the majority of the flow comes down from Monroeville. And T29A, I believe is T29A10, which is the very end of the system, where it takes on a majority of Monroeville. If I'm wrong on that one, I apologize, but I'm assuming T29A10 is what we're talking about. If it's T29A, it's a small connection to the Turtle Creek Interceptor, which is, I believe, all Monroeville, which I think is off of Forbes.
I will verify these and get that information back to you. That's definitely.
Okay, but I mean, it's obviously out to us, and I know the municipal authority out here in Monroeville, they have their Avers Creek section done, and the smaller one you're referring to might be the one on Monroeville Road. I think it's only like an 8-inch line, and then there's the Thompson Run trunk that we have a good chunk of it done, but then it also then connects with 3 other communities or 2 other communities with us. So we'll just look forward to the paperwork at the authority. But thanks.
Some of these are more simple sores, you know, that did have in newer sores had less defects. It was easier to complete, but some of them still are, you know, M49 is a large sewer system, and M45, A78. So some of them are still complicated. So I don't want to say for sure that it is a small sewer shed.
No problem. And I believe in some of the literature we received before that we'd be getting maps and maybe lists of what's in our districts.
Okay, any other questions for Jan?
Yeah, that's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Jan.
Mm-hmm.
Next, we have Joey Valerian. Joey's going to talk to us about the annual public hearing on February 23rd. Joe? You're muted, Joe.
Good afternoon, everybody. There we go. We are having our annual public meeting. It is a week from today on the 23rd. It's 2 to 3:30. It will be virtual, much like this is, broadcast on YouTube and on our website. It's a very broad but very comprehensive overview of the 4 components of the Clean Water Plan, the successes that we've had last year, and some of the things that are going to take place this year. So that's kind of the broad overview. If invite any of you to join us if you have time. We'd welcome you to watch. If you have any questions, be happy to answer.
Hearing none, thank you, Joe.
Yep.
Public comment. Anybody have anything they want to inject? Or more specifically, anything that they would like to be dealt with in a future meeting?
Tim, this is Lisa Brown talking. I know I don't know if this is the right time in the agenda to bring this up, but you know, as I look at everyone who's in attendance, it looks like the same cast of characters, and many of our colleagues on the advisory committee are missing at quite a number of meetings. And I think it's because they cannot make the daytime meeting. And I was wondering if we could possibly mix these up a little bit to have a few evening meetings in which to make sure that the rest, like for instance, the other 2 representatives from my basin can't make these meetings because they have other jobs, not in government.
Okay. Lisa, to that end, and I appreciate that comment, we also received I received the same request from Darla today, asking if we could maybe change it up. And that has been referred to both Arletta and Joey to see if we can accommodate that request. So we'll try to do an evening meeting. Lisa, do you have a feel for what time that meeting could be?
You know, I'm not sure. I think that, you know, if you would to use an example of, for instance, the evening meetings that ALCOSAN has normally for the public, that might be a good guideline.
Okay, and I guess Jeannie, what time are the evening meetings at ALCOSAN?
Hold on, I muted myself.
Okay.
When we did our municipal meetings, we had them starting, the later in the day meeting, we had them starting at 5. They went 5 to 6:30. And we got a pretty good response to that. based on looking particularly for elected officials who might have daytime jobs. And of course, we got a great response from Aetna. They sent the entire council, I think. But seriously, there were, that does tend to help with people, even, I tend to think of that as early in the evening.
Yeah, that's pretty early.
Yeah, but we've gone, I think we've gone as late on some of these municipality meetings to 7 to start. Again, it's a function of, you have to consider a whole lot of things in it. If we're talking about, I would think, changing this meeting and maybe mixing it up, then we probably should survey this group and ask what timing might be good for them.
I think that's a good idea. Maybe we could do a doodle poll. Patty DeMarco brings up a good point that a lot of the municipalities, their meetings are typically 6:37 time period. And it's going to be hard to fall in because a lot of us on the second Tuesday, Mary Ellen's got a meeting tonight. Some councils meet on Mondays. So it would have to be, I would think, before council meeting time. But
Yeah,
5 o'clock kind of puts a lot of pressure on somebody who's working full time to get home to join this kind of a meeting. So they've got to be somewhere in between that sweet spot of 5 and 7.
Right. I agree with you. We have the municipal outreach department is working on having more of an observation presence at some of the municipal meetings. And, we have for some of the days of the week, we have a whole long list and we're trying to figure out how to cover that.
Is it possible to do a doodle poll of this committee to see
Sure.
what recommendation they would want to do?
Sure.
Okay, I appreciate that. Lisa, we'll do that poll and we'll see what the results will be.
Great. Thank you so much, Tim. I appreciate
Sure.
it.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
Mr. Chairman, I'm
Hey,
sorry.
Dan.
I would agree. I mean, I just chimed in. I mean, you're great at running meetings, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I might miss the whole thing. But it's midday, and I have work, I have clients, and something goes over in the middle of the day, and there's not much I can do, even though it's on my calendar sometimes. Just kind of an example.
All those folders that are behind you, Dan, you can't be that busy. Is that really? There's other people doing that work there.
All my work. This is all my work.
Okay. No wonder you can't make a meeting. All right, very good. Any other public comments? Hearing none, our next meeting is March 16th at 2 p.m. and then we'll try to go April to try to maybe we can get a meeting mixed in then. I'm headed to Florida in another day, so I wish all of you well here.
For sure.
Yeah. Enjoy.
Is there anything else that anyone would like to add? Max, do you have anything else for the group?
Nothing from the solicitor.
Okay, thank you, Max. And then we got Darla's comment in, so I think we've got everything in. Thank you, Patty. I appreciate that. I'll be thinking of all of you. And let's hope this winter comes to an end real soon. But thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you on March 16th, 2021. And as always, my thanks to the ALCOSAN staff and Joey. Great job on the technology side of things. Thank you all. Have a wonderful afternoon.